Australia, Australia, Australia. Yeah, can't, Australia. Yeah, can't. What you gonna do when we come for you? Can't.
Hello and welcome to Eastern Marshlands, an evening with comrades. Tonight we have with us Possidus Pac-Man.
Yo!
We also have with us Spoogs and shit.
I'm dying.
We have with us Eugene.
Aren't we all spooks? Hello, everyone.
Paul Lexnovic will be joining us later, and I'll be your host, TK Jones. Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button and the little bell button. You can also check us out at easternmarshlands.com. Tonight we're going to be talking about reactionaries and the strange ways they work. Specifically, what prompted us with this is a internal Google memo. And we'll get to that just after we check in with the lads. So, lads, how are we?
Just casual wage slaving away. Not much else really. I mean, well, besides making a video that apparently blew up for some reason. Not sure why. Gave Eastern Marshlands a bit of publicity though.
Which video was this again?
That would be the Left Tube anime opening. If you guys haven't seen it, I suggest you go look at it and embrace yourself for the sheer stupidity of it. But
the sheer
it's
beauty.
really good. Come on, it was beautiful.
I'll just drop it in the chat as well.
It came about because
it was really good.
The opening song that I used is actually an opening from one of my favorite animes ever, which is really sad when you think about it because that anime is quite honestly a magical girl anime.
Madoka.
The anime itself is called The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. I don't know.
Does not ring a bell for me. I haven't seen it, but I really enjoyed that you put Carl, my cat, into the video. He's on my lap. He's happy to be the star. Comrades Kitty. Subtitled. I love it.
Well, I don't know if you guys noticed, but each one of the kanji that's written underneath, I use Google Translate, so it's probably horribly syntaxed. But each one of the kanji at the bottom of each segment is actually a joke about the person who's on screen. And I will reveal Eugene's subtitle kanji, and that is that little known fact, but Eugene's cat is actually the Belarusian Vanguard. Comrade Carl, Neko-chan Carl is
he actually is a Vanguard, Belarusian Vanguard, because he literally does nothing for socialism to come. He's a lazy ass.
And we're already into the Vanguard bashing. Yeah. Okay.
The cat is
It's mostly Belarusian Communist Party bashing because he is this party. Like, if he's too active, you just come to him and start rubbing his belly, and he's completely happy with you. He literally falls down on his back and allows you to rub him, whatever. That's what he does. That's all he does. He pleases his masters. Well, he's really bad at being a revolutionary vanguardist.
That is an amazing political analysis of the situation in Belarus. I forgot how to say it. I was going to say Belarus.
Leninism, Nekoism. It's
Neko-chan. Also known as a big mistake.
Spooks. How are you doing, Spooks?
Not too bad. A bit tired, but that's about it.
How goes the onward march of anarcho-nihilism?
Non-existent still. Still trying to... It will happen, don't worry about it.
Non-existent. Just waiting for it to happen.
He's sounding like to kill some people.
He's sounding like an anarcho-left-com nihilist.
No, it's called Australia not having any post-left sort of nihilist anarchists anywhere. It's all fucking leftoids and syndicalists. It's gross. It's disgusting. Ugh. Like my area only
This
has like
alone.
one group, and they don't do shit. It's disgusting.
Well, what you should do is join that group and then turn it into what you want it to be. You'll have to insurrect the
though,
group from
They
within.
barely get together. Like
Then-
I don't
then
do too much.
Then you got to make them get together.
It's
I'm
just
gonna
the
force you to
Skype
come together.
conference. It's just a Skype conference that's almost dead.
I'm gonna like make a ring of fire, and I'm gonna shove everyone into the ring of fire. And it's like, all right, now we're gonna have a meeting here right now. Let's go.
That's one hell of a meeting.
I mean, atmosphere is everything. First impressions are everything.
As I said, I almost worked it out today. That well, I worked out the other day actually that you know, when you're playing a democratic country in Hearts of Iron 4, when you're playing a democratic country, almost all of us select like the communist advisor, so we spread class consciousness and turn our country into a paradise for the proletariat. But one thing I noticed is that while you're sitting there waiting for communism to happen, it literally, we have confirmed something. For anyone who plays a communist country in Hearts of Iron 4 is actually a leftcon,
Yeah, basically.
and they're just practicing. Like you're literally a leftcon.
You're just practicing being a
sitting and
left
waiting for communism to happen. And you know what's crazy about Hearts of Iron and Leftcon? In case of Hearts of Iron, sitting and waiting for the revolution to happen actually works. And
Paradox of Bordigus is confirmed.
yeah, what you need
Fuck.
is one man in government who's a communist. That's it.
Leftcoms think
That's
that real life is literally a Hearts of Iron game. Fuck.
One person who is a communist actually made it to local council in Australia. Does that mean communism is inevitable in Australia?
It is.
Or
Actually,
just
yeah.
that local council?
Paradox logic,
I
it's
don't know if
slowly
you
going
guys heard
communist.
about this, but by that logic, the biggest communist / socialist state in America is actually Texas, because Texas did actually elect in the midterms. Austin actually voted for someone from the Democratic Socialist Party of America
Oh my god.
in fucking
there are, like,
Texas.
There are
That
a lot
is
of
amazing.
people, not only in Texas, like there are some states where they have like representatives in the local parliament that are on
Freaking
them song.
great.
It's good. It's fun. I really love Democratic Socialists of America. They're doing God's work. I love it. They are not the vanguard of the revolution. They are not the revolutionary force that will be bringing forth socialism in America. But they're so fucking important.
Do you think it's an indicator of like the changing political spectrum in America when
No, not at all.
this? Well, there's like a Democratic candidate and a Republican candidate, and people are starting to choose actually vote for the third candidate because we've gotten this DSA guy in Texas. Is this a trend of? Is this something that's going to show a trend of things to come, or is this like a one-off thing?
It may be a trend. It's just that people really fucking hate current state, and they stopped hating the current. They stopped saying, you know what, I really fucking hate both parties. They started saying, you know what, I really fucking hate capitalism, and it's a good trend. It's a good trend because they should catch up with the rest of the world in that terms, you know. And in the age of reaction that we live in, it's really hard to have class conscious people, and it's just an indicator of some levels of class consciousness. I don't think it's a trend, you know, precisely. We should wait out and have a look. Hopefully it is. But what we're seeing now in America is just that, and actually it will put us into our topic of today's discussion, is that people see that there are changes that humans cannot control. Those are inherent contradictions of capitalism. Those are self-interest of corporation that are pushing politics and social part of life and into new boundaries, and it gives birth to radicals. Because on one side you have people who want to push for radical changes, and on the other side you have people who want to retain the mythical, you know, image of past world as the real world. They want to make their idea of a state a reality. And this is what reactionaries are. They have a mythical idea of, for example, what America is or Australia is. And they're like, this is not what my country is about. My country is not about those Muslims. My country is not about those gender studies. My country is about, I don't know what. I don't have to say what. Just not that. We have to go back. Like
Mm.
reactionaries are literally, we have to go back meme.
This
It's just that.
this sort of shows through with that internal Google memo where that guy was ranting and raving about how what was it again? Could you run us through it, Eugene?
Sure. Basically, the dude was ranting about equality, and he was saying that actually women are worse at IT than men, and actually, what Google is doing is they discriminate against people who have conservative opinions. And he came out as a complete fucking idiot, first of all. Second of all, as a person who completely misunderstands anything that sociologists are talking about, anything that feminists or leftists are talking about, and like, of course, he pointed out a bunch of bullshit that corporations do that I dislike very much, like how they try to stay, up to date in terms of supporting social movements just to appease the mass. And he used that as the counter argument to them, and it all boiled down to basically a very bad fucking reactionary manifesto text, and he was fired for that. And why we are talking about him after like he was such a big deal on Reactionary Tube, and on like he went to Joe Rogan, who always hosts terrible like people. I love Joe Rogan, I must say. I really like him as an entertainer. He's extremely funny and fun. I love to see him talking about the fucking sensory deprivation rooms and hunting. That's why I occasionally listen to him. He always keep talking about that shit. Love it. He's one of the reasons why I wanted to do a podcast, because I love his podcast so much. Like I never thought it could be entertaining to sit down and listen for someone to talk for 3 hours, but it is. It's Joe Rogan. He's good, but he always gets reactionaries on, and it's cringy as fuck. He got him on. Well, why is Google guy still relevant? He sued Google. He sued Google for discrimination. He sued Google for discrimination based on his skin color, for discriminating against white people, I must say, and also for discriminating against conservatives. I love it. Like, and he and another guy is suing, and their demands are to stop discrimination against white people in Google, and also to pay up a compensation which is not specified in the documents, but basically he and another guy doing that. There was another guy with him who was also a Google employee who are doing it. Well, it's really fucking crazy. Like, it is really fun that they're doing it, because I would really love to read through like and see what sort of judgments will the judge do, because in America, I'm not sure how it is in Australia, but in America, all the court stuff, all the court documents, all the court stuff that they're writing, it's all public access. You can read through that.
It's just there's this strange like certain reactionaries when they try to go on like a big campaign of like, this is bad, I want to change it. They constantly present themselves as the victim, as the persecuted. And it just sounds really weird how this guy says, "Oh, you're discriminating against conservatives," when conservatism like creates poverty and puts people out on the street. Like, okay, so if Google is like, for whatever reason, is actually persecuting conservatives, good, because fuck conservatives.
Well, no, because you don't understand. Actually, it's liberals who put out people from work, from jobs, because big government. Whatever.
If you see, if you just let the free market handle
it's
it,
social.
You just got to let the free market handle it. You know, it's going to fix it all right up. It's going to be great.
Mhm.
But no, fucking
Did you
government
know the
likes to
Democratic
intervene.
Party? Exactly, Democratic Party are literal fucking Bolsheviks.
They're Stalinists.
Yeah,
Oh my
Hillary
god.
Clinton is
That's
a Stalinist. You don't understand.
that's another thing. That's another thing. Like in Australia, we have a not as robust of the English language using reactionaries, where anything that's slightly to the left of them on the political spectrum are
Mhm.
Stalinists and communists. Wherein there was a few of the patriots who were calling Malcolm Turnbull a communist.
Uh,
Malcolm
Yeah.
Turnbull is a communist.
I fucking wish.
You know what's fun about France, for example? In France, if you say, "Oh, I'm a communist," if you call somebody communist, it's not an offensive slur. A slur is the word Bolshevik. If you call somebody a Bolshevik, that's their way of saying you want free healthcare or you're a Bolshevik. I love it.
you know what I want in my life? I love that. I love that. Could you imagine it? I mean, you hear all this shit about, fucking commies, evil bastards that they are. No, I'd love that. All right. Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Jeremy Sanders III. I'm here to talk about, turning Australia into a communist nation. Everyone's all like, ooh, communists. I want a 100% literacy rate, a 0% infant mortality rate, healthcare for everybody.
100% starvation, am I right?
An end to poverty and homelessness in our big cities. And then,
By starving everyone to death.
oh no, how are we going to pay for it? By not buying several $1 million tanks that are not going to do us any good fucking anyway.
or
Yeah,
or
that's
fight
actually
like
good.
$1 million fighter jets that we're not going to do jack shit with.
Hey, can we just talk about that for a minute? Because as a sort of amateur defense analyst, I really kind of fucking get irked by this. Can anyone see the actual point of the military procurement program for the JSF, for the Joint Strike Fighter project?
Yes,
Like,
I can.
okay. Well,
Three words. 3 words. Military-industrial complex.
Exactly.
Hi-yo.
Hi-oh. But no.
That's pretty much it.
But in all seriousness, if you actually look at what the projected combat capability of that thing is compared to Australia's tactical needs, it's like, why?
So this
Half of Australia's defence needs could be covered. Like if you're talking about stopping the boats and stopping those brown people, to use a Tony colloquialism.
Oh my God.
If that was your, like, all you'd need is scrap that shit. Just buy a couple of speedboats with a 50 cal on the end, and you're fine. What the fuck do you need that for?
I know there's constantly the Liberal Party coalition in Australia are like, we want to alleviate poverty and the mums and dads of Australia. We want them to be well off, and we also want to keep the nation defended. So they cut penalty rates and start cutting social services and whatnot, like funding for Medicare and whatnot. So then everyone's like, oh shit, if I get sick, I'll have to it'll cost me so much money, so I have to save and not spend. And then all of a sudden the coalition are like, shit, we're going further into debt, the economy's crap. What are we gonna do? I know. We'll buy 50 fucking jets that we don't need.
This is what I'm thinking. I was talking to a conservative friend of mine the other day, and yes, I have conservative friends. And we were discussing the ideas of how he justifies the US defense budget but can't justify healthcare. His simple point was that, well, everybody out there hates America. I'm like, well, yes. You think there might be a reason for this? No, but here's the thing, okay? From a military standpoint, okay, let's look at this. Okay, now Call me a filthy fucking revisionist if you want, but okay, let's have a look at Nikita Khrushchev's policies in the 1960s. Now, besides crushing the Hungarians, which they deserved, by the way, fight me goulash.
Oh my god.
Disclaimer: I don't actually believe
Go
that.
away.
I'm gonna tell Goulash you said that. It'll come
It's
onto
on
the
a
live
stream.
stream.
Fight me IRL, bro. Just a disclaimer: I don't actually believe that. That was a really, really bad call. But
Okay, thank God.
no.
Because it's a way to summon goulash. Is to do so-called, still talking about Hungarian Revolution.
Support
And-
Khrushchev. Oh, the
Support
Hungarian
Khrushchev against
Revolution.
Hungarian imperialism.
Full,
Hungarian
like the
imperialism.
Hungarian Revolution, like in 1956, where all of the right wingers tried to overthrow Soviet influence that was actually protecting the country. Because that's all it was. You don't need to check
And now-
sources on that.
in all
No,
serious-
stop googling. Don't. Oh shit! Here he is.
In all
I told you
seriousness,
this is how
I
to
was
summon
told-
goulash, guys.
Fucking hell.
I love it when I say that.
About Hungarian
It's
goulash.
exactly like it's the Bloody Mary. It's the way you do Bloody Mary with goulash. It's just like the Hungarians deserved it. The Hungarians deserved it.
Legend,
the Hungarians
legend
deserved
says that if you say my name 3 times in the mirror,
it. No, it's not your name. If I say the Splitters deserved it, the Splitters deserved it, the Splitters deserve it, he appears like boom. They were actually the
I'm
Workers'
good.
Party of
Good.
Hungary.
all right. So fill me in.
Hey,
Fill me in,
Hey,
boys.
where's-
We are talking a bunch of stuff. We're talking about reactionaries. We're talking about Australian and like defense
So-
programs and whatnot, and how people justify them.
I
Only
was
one-
talking about how the coalition fucks up the economy, and
Wait,
in
say
order
that
to
again.
try to fix it, they buy 50 fighter jets. And then Pac-Man, in a defense analysis perspective, was trying to use the 1956 Hungarian response from the Soviets. And then at that point, we're like, don't say that, you'll summon goulash. And here we are.
No, okay, I will say this. The only reason I say they deserved it is just to piss Goulash off, just as a disclaimer.
Yeah, I remember you said that in one of the Discord servers. You were like, Khrushchev didn't go far enough, and I was just so, finger on the trigger, my man. Like,
But you should know I'm memeing. I'm a fucking libertarian socialist. You should know I'm memeing.
I know, but it's like sometimes I try and be objective with these things, and then people just meme for the sake of it. And then I just start gritting my teeth, and I can feel the pain. Everything goes all.
Okay.
I just want it to stop.
Okay, just okay. I'm going to come out with a full disclosure here. For all of you who have watched my anime OP, the Japanese translation on Goulash's sequence is Khrushchev did nothing wrong, and the Hungarian splitters deserved all they got.
Ah, what the fuck?
That is exactly what,
Right.
if you translate the Japanese on his sequence, that is exactly what it says.
No.
delete this.
Delete this.
Bombs
I
dropped,
I
dude.
couldn't help myself. I had to do it.
Shots fired in Japanese.
Yup.
Shots fired against Hungarian peasants. You mean? Anyway.
Oh,
Well, the USSR doesn't exist anymore, so I mean, who really wins?
Neither did the People's Democratic Republic of Hungary. But hey,
That's where you're wrong. It wasn't called the People's Democratic Republic of Hungary, so.
hey, that's like
That.
Comrade
It's not like the DPRK, mate. They weren't making statements they couldn't hold up.
no, Comrade Khrushchev. Comrade Khrushchev, I have bad
Or
news.
like Nikita
What?
Khrushchev.
What
Alright.
is wrong, comrade? I'll tell you what is wrong. There is actual workers' democracy happening. What? Send it everything. Send the tanks. Send the bombs. Send everything.
They won't get away with it.
And that's the tankies pissed off again. Don't you think we've got a bad habit of doing this?
Yankees
Oh,
deserve
you
it.
were saying about how the Liberal coalition has just decided to buy a bunch of shit
Yep.
as their response for fixing. It reminds me of that time when they bought all of those planes that nobody asked for no reason.
That is it. Yeah.
Super Hornets or whatever.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, let's buy all of these. What are you talking about, Tony? Nobody wants them.
Well, the Super
Like,
Hornet.
you're trying to get rid of them because they don't want them. It's like, nah,
Hang
it'll be all right. It'll be cool.
Hang on. In that defense, the Super Hornet is actually a really good weapon system for Australia. Sure, filthy tool of imperialism though it is.
I'll tell you what it's like. It's like when you're playing Age of Empires, and you're stuck on like one of the lower tier, like levels, and you're still in like the medieval age, and then someone's in like the castle or the imperial age, and you're trying to use all your good shit, but you're too low to use it.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Don't the Super Hornets only get used for like a New Year's like Eve celebration or whatever?
No. That was different. The Super Hornet actually is in service.
Parade.
Why did you buy all these F-35s? Aesthetic.
That's it. And you want to know what? That's actually it. Their stealth capability is trash. Okay, so just allow me to go into military nerd for a moment here.
Why? We're talking about reactionaries.
We are talking about reactionaries, but here is why it's reactionary. We cooperate with the Americans in this sort of fucking, we're going to build a stealth fighter, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. It's called the Joint Strike Fighter. Why? Because it can do ground attack as well as air superiority. Okay, right. Now here's the thing. The aircraft is designed around stealth, right? It's got all those oblong shapes and shit like that. Fine. Okay. Now here's the problem. Because of this, it's only got one engine. Now, I don't know if you've seen the size of Australia, but I'm telling you right now, if you try to patrol around Australia, if you've only got one engine, if that thing breaks, you are in a world of fucking hurt, which is exactly why we bought the Hornets, because guess what? They've got two.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta put yourself down in the Nullarbor and then be attacked by emus, and then
Exactly.
you have a fucking jet fighter.
Exactly. But here's
what
the
you can
next
do then?
problem.
They're going to fucking, they're going to what's it called? Reverse engineer it, and Australia is literally fucked.
Stealth emus. Yeah.
Stealth emus.
They're already here.
Maybe they're already here. We don't know. They're stealth.
But here's the thing,
Very
right?
stealth.
Okay, just to finish off my point here, we give the Americans a shit ton of money, saying, okay, yep, we're going to do this. We're going to buy these aircraft. Okay, so if it breaks, we're fucked. Okay, so we bought some aircraft carriers. Yes, we actually did. They're like these Spanish helicopter carriers, which an F-35 could probably operate off of. Guess what? The Liberal government purchases the fixed-wing only model, so it can't take off the new aircraft carriers we bought. Okay, there's number one. Number two, the aircraft itself only has 2 weapons bays, each with a rotary launcher carrying about 4 missiles, okay? However, the registered payload of that aircraft is like, 23,000 pounds. Like, oh, it's the same as the F-15, it's going to be great. Get this, guys. It's going to carry those weapons on the outside of the aircraft. Now,
What?
Okay.
just to put that in perspective, a stealth aircraft operates by having no oblong or jarring shapes on the excess of the surface of the aircraft. It deflects radar signatures away. But the only way the F-35 is going to be able to carry enough ordnance to maintain a successful combat posture is if it hangs weapons on the outside. Now, what do you think that does to the stealth capability of the aircraft?
Not very
Aircraft
much.
that only has one engine, doesn't take off of our aircraft carriers, and loses its stealth advantage by only being able to carry weapons on the outside. And to top it all off, because it loses its stealth advantage, its sole advantage was the stealth. In terms for return rate, a radar suite, and an attack pattern, it is behind almost every Russian and Chinese jet, their models of the Sukhoi 37 and so on.
Yeah,
In short, the Liberals have bought an aircraft that doesn't work at all.
yeah,
I
but
completely-
did you
I
forget about
completely-
those aesthetics?
I've got to admit, I completely zoned out about halfway through there because I was just looking at some Simpsons memes. But I mean,
Well, just to put it in perspective,
I zoned
just to
back,
put it in
I tuned
perspective,
back in, and I heard something about like it cost a lot of money and it doesn't work. And I was
Exactly.
like, "Yep, that's about right."
yeah, and okay, and just to put this in perspective, this entire stream, I have been piloting a submarine this entire stream so far.
Play a video.
Jesus.
When are you going to launch the nukes, though?
Exactly, that's my plan. I'm getting into position to accelerate the dialectic. But no,
Oh, nice.
no. But in all seriousness, my whole point of my rant there is something that to tie back into the reactionaries is something about the symptomatic nature of it. Like TK was saying, we're willing to spend a shit ton of money on weapons that don't work for the military-industrial complex and project force we don't need to project.
Hmm.
And then you contrast it with the amount of money that they spend. They say, "Oh, we're stimulating the economy." I'm leading back into what I was talking about before with my friend, the conservative, who tried to justify America's defense spending against their domestic spending. And the fact is this: the Americans currently have 9 aircraft carriers, fleet size. Okay, each one costs over $1 billion to run per year, not including aircraft and shit aboard that they'd had to purchase outright to begin with. Weapon systems, crew, so on, so on, so on. You're looking at a shitload of money. Now, what really gets me is when liberals say, "Oh yeah, we need to cut defense spending and all that," but they're like, "Okay, but you know, we're still a democracy, right?" Whenever you look at it, they call themselves a defensive force. The aircraft carrier has one sole purpose: to project force. Now,
Yeah.
what I was saying regarding to Khrushchev is Khrushchev was removed from his position in a quasi coup from the hardliners because he was trying to cut defense spending and reinvest in domestic areas and cutting the defense budget, which is why he was so big on the rockets and why he was big on the space program. He wanted to shift the Soviet military posture to a purely defensive role. Basically, what I'm saying is, the whole thing can be boiled down to simple fucking imperialism in both of our governments, in all of our governments, in fact. What
It's in
the
force, military
projecting
force.
force, exactly. It's the only reason the F-35 exists. It's the only reason the aircraft carrier exists. Defensive warfare, in a modern sense, does not apply to any of the NATO countries. I think maybe Lithuania and shit, maybe at a stretch. But if you're talking somewhere like the United States or even France, for that matter, you're looking at countries which specialize in the projection of force, not in a defensive posture. And that is what I think the biggest problem is. If people need to be more informed about that sort of shit and why I think it's so important, because at the end of the day, all these weapon systems and all this money is spent on projecting imperial power. Yet we're doing it in the name of fucking freedom. Fuck off.
Actually,
I
a
don't
very
know
good
how.
point, you know? Actually, a good point about projection of power and defense, because it's one of the reasons why reactionaries say that they are conservatives, because they want to produce force, they want to, you know, they want to keep, you know, their respective country doing a bunch of imperialist shit. And while the conservatives and the right wing in the state keeps doing that, if they keep reckless spending on defense, which is basically not on defense but rather on projection of force and attack, you know, outright, they will keep supporting that. And this is why those conservative governments keep driving the economy into the fucking ground, because what they do is they do reckless shit, like, you know, trickle down economics.
Is that kind of stuff
Yeah.
just an attempt to get the more reactionary elements of the population on their side so that they can get their votes?
No, it's more like in America's case, America's upper class is extremely class conscious, and they have elements to push forward their agenda and their class interest. This is why they have all the lobbyists. This is why they have all the military spending, to be honest, because of all the big money in military.
So
And
the most class
they just
conscious in
keep
America are the rich people.
Yeah. This is why they keep acting in the class interests, and they keep pushing for really, you know, this is why the working class in America has been having very hard time for a very long time now. because America's ruling class is extremely class conscious, and they are acting in accordance with their class interests, and this results in a bunch of crazy policy that the reactionaries get on board easily, because this will benefit the rich, and it looks like stuff that the reactionaries would enjoy. A new aircraft carrier, a new invasion, a new fucking, suppression of the working class movements, a new law that bans, suppresses the unions even more, stuff like this. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I thought it was a lag. I thought it was a lag. I'm sorry. Yeah, but like that's the point. And this is why this whole thing that you said about projecting force is so important. This is why reactionaries lynch onto that.
But what
They
I don't
love it.
what I don't understand in terms, well, I do understand, but I don't, is just how dense, the average person has to be not to work it out. Now they say the best defense is a good offense, but apart from nuclear weapons, which, let's face it, nuclear weapons, besides being my favorite thing in the world, are they're a political weapon. They're a strategic weapon. They're not a tactical weapon. They're not a tactical force in any sense of the word.
Yeah.
But war by an extension is a political act. Now mutually assured destruction as a theorem was enforced and did succeed, and still succeeds today, by posing a severe nuclear deterrent to any attacking force, which is why we haven't seen any major conflicts in recent years, because a major conflict would be so devastating that no one's been ballsy enough to try it.
It's one of the
But
reasons. The second one is the international bourgeoisie.
there's no
But
money in
yeah.
it, correct? Yeah. But it's just a case of, by that very logic, if you are a nuclear armed state, you should, in theory, be able to cut your defense spending by a considerable margin. Now, the United States means the largest military and the largest overseas presence than any other country in the world. Easily. By 26 times order of magnitude. When I was speaking to my conservative friend, I asked him how he justifies this. And he stated quite frankly that he wanted to have a larger stick than the other people in the world. Now, my reaction to this was one of incredulity, because I worked it out that 2 US aircraft carriers combined have more firepower than the entire Australian and Indonesian defense forces combined.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. 2 aircraft carriers. 2 aircraft carriers have a bigger air force than our air force in its entirety. That's not including choppers and support aircraft. In that case, the US wins by an even larger margin. My friend from the US Army, from Texas, we've sat down and worked out one rainy day while we were chatting to one another while he was in Afghanistan, that theoretically the entire the US transport arm of the US military could pick up and move the entire Australian Defence Force in one go.
Oh fuck.
You could load every tank, every armored vehicle, every infantryman that the Australian military has and move it in one flight using the US Air Force. Now, if your country has that kind of capability, I don't see how anyone can argue that it's necessary.
Is this
not.
This
is the reason why America doesn't have a bison problem compared to Australians' emu problem. This is why the bison uprising was suppressed successfully. Learn a lesson or two.
Is this kind of like a massive military logistical thing? Does this come from like reactionary thinking or just the military industrial complex?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah, it's imperialism and appeasing those people that really like that shit and want more of that shit, And I think because they had military industrial complex and they had this sort of, big capabilities and they did a bunch of imperialism, this sort of created the demand for that for American reactionaries. That's why they like it. You know, they like when America has a giant fucking military force. They will even say, you know what we were doing in terms of our invasions and our imperialism. Fuck healthcare. I personally don't want healthcare if that means less fucking invasions. That's my hot take. They will even go that far because they love it so much.
One thing that really amazed me when I sat down and did the math on it, it was one thing that made me laugh. I asked people, you know, Americans in particular, what is the role of the US military in the world today? Now, of course, all of our comrades say imperialism, and that's just the truth. We all know it is. But the average person said to me, "Oh, it's for our defense. It's called it's the Ministry of Defense. It's for defense," including my friend, my conservative friend. I actually asked him on the show, by the way. Believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
He refused because he said he didn't want to walk into the lion's den. But
Well, I think you might be overstepping the our capabilities, but
You're talking us up a bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what I was saying was, I asked a simple question, and I actually ran into some Americans online, and asked them the same question. How many wars have the United States fought? Now, not including like, wars between Native Americans, because then we'll be here all day. But how many wars has the United States of America fought in its history? Now, none of them could give me an answer. Some of them said, "Oh, we fought about 10, or we fought about, 15 or something like that." You know what I mean? They're like, "Oh, if you include like all the little ones in the imperial period, like, when England and all that and France were all around, like, border skirmishes and shit like that, maybe 20 or 30. United States has been completely at peace with no military armed conflict for 2 years in its entire history.
Jesus Christ.
God.
How many wars have the United States fought with a foreign power on its own soil?
I think 0.
2.
It was just invasions? Oh, 2. Okay.
The Revolution against the British in the first place, and the War of 1812.
Okay.
Hey, that's 2 years of peace and freedom, though. That's 2 years of peace and freedom.
Okay, so
Fucking hell.
besides the Revolution in 1776 and the War in 1812, every single war the United States have ever fought has been on foreign soil. Every single one.
Yeah, it's just
1812.
invasions.
Ooh. That's a nice White House you've got there. It'd be a shame
Shame
if
if
someone were
something
to set it on
Something
fire.
happened to it.
We burned that fucker down, we did.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to dip out, boys. I'll see you
See you,
around.
Goulash.
See you, boys.
Thanks for letting me laugh. Thanks for coming.
But this is what I'm saying.
Now that he's gone, fuck Hungary.
Exactly. Fuck them.
I kid. What were you saying?
No, basically what I was saying is, I just like to point that out. And then you have, okay, so you have, all right, well, look at other countries, like, the bad guys. All right, how many wars has China fought? Thousands, if you count the dynasties and shit, so on. But how many
Okay.
wars has China fought on foreign soil? 2. It was, as far as I'm aware, several more if you include include the steppes and so forth. But if you include the intervention in the Patriotic War for National Liberation, shout out to our Juche comrades, or the invasion of Vietnam. Okay, again, and then of course you've got the People's Republic of Vietnam. How many wars has it fought? 2. 1 defensively against, not including the war against the Americans. It's got 1 defensive against the Chinese and 1 an invasion of Cambodia. All right. North Korea, how many wars
Which
has
was
it fought?
completely justified.
Yeah.
Ironically, it was justified.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking pot that menace, that CIA funded menace. As for North Korea, how many wars has it fought? 1. How many wars has Cuba fought? 1. How many wars have the Russians fought? Thousands from the start of their history, but at the Soviet Union, it fought 3.
If you
The
talk to
Revolutionary War?
if you talk to the average patriotic American, though, won't they tell you that it's to spread freedom around the world, though?
Well, then what makes that any different from us? That's the question I would ask them. I mean, I asked young liberals at a university campus in their little tent. I asked them, why do your young people and your students, why are you conservatives? They asked me, because we believe in conservative values, and I said, so what's your opposition to socialism? And they said, oh, it doesn't work, all that sort of the standard conservative shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then came the next question. Okay, well, what's wrong with socialism? Oh, because it doesn't work. Why? Okay, what's your alternative? And of course they say, well, capitalism, market capitalism, free markets, all that sort of shit. Great. Okay, fine. Now, what is the measure of success? Why is capitalism considered a good thing? Oh, because it does competition and all that. So why? And so it basically broke down to this. After a long debating, I'm saying, okay, so what is the driving force for capitalism and its success? Why is capitalism successful? What motivates people to work? What enables the thing? And they say, well, simple, self-interest. So what you're saying is people will act in their self-interest. Yes, okay. So I asked them about their backgrounds. Okay, so they say, okay, what does your dad do? What is, oh, he's an executive, or mine's a consultant for a car firm, or mine's a lawyer. I'm like, okay, so what school did you guys go to? Oh, we went to Pembroke, we went to, Pulteney Grammar, we went to the Adelaide University Senior College.
These are all posh schools for those that
They're all
don't
posh
know.
kids. They're posh kids, yep, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So why do you think socialism is such a big factor in the Australian youth movement right now? Or at least the socialist alternative.
Mhm. Go on.
Sorry. Slight wretch. And they're like, oh, well, it's because they're in their self-interest, because they're lazy. I'm like, or because... And then I'm like, because... And actually one of them said, because they're poor. And I'm like, so you admit there's a class divide?
Got him.
And then a fucking shitstorm broke out. And oh
Exactly.
god, was it great? Watching young liberals be like, put my free markets. No.
We were talking
They
about.
start spazzing out
We're
with
talking about
reactionary.
before we went
Let's
live.
talk about equal opportunity capitalism, shall we? How equal opportunity it is. Go fuck yourself. You're all taking law degrees and economics degrees paid for by daddy. What about these kids? Why are they socialists? Because they can't afford to eat, you twits.
Yeah. This is what I was trying to mention before with, like, I think it's called cognitive dissonance, where you say to them, like, what you said, Pac-Man, and then you can zoom in on their brains and you can see the gears trying to turn in their head, and it's just grinding against one another, just and the electronic blue smoke just emits from their ears. They can't handle it.
It's just their whole thing. I did it in my response to ANCAP's video that I did for Batco, which that project kind of crashed and burned. I'm not sure what happened to that.
Nothing really happened. It's just that, like,
Peace.
one person delayed the response, and then we said "fuck it," and that's it.
but like I said, it the whole thing of capitalism, like, it goes against its freaking. It just doesn't work. People will do it because they're greedy and because of self-interest and stuff, and we're talking about harnessing people's, self-interest. I'm thinking, well, okay, fine. You're going to harness people's self-interest. You're going to do all this. You're going to do all that shit. How is it in people's interest? How is it in people's interest to impoverish themselves? How is it in people's interest to rely on charity almost? Because let's face it, in a fully capitalist society, and we see it in the United States, the late stage capitalism in the United States today. People are starting GoFundMes to afford their medical bills. They are relying on charity
It's
to
ridiculous.
survive. Now,
It's
just don't
so weird
understand.
when people say like, "Oh, socialism will never work because humans are naturally greedy, so we should just stick with capitalism and charity because humans are naturally charitable." It happens again.
yeah, like grinds to a halt. Like, excuse me, guys. How can they excuse themselves? I don't understand. But again, it's the same thing, talking about market forces and all that. But you
Yeah,
see it.
like
You see
in
it.
my opinion, like this is why. Let me intervene here for just a second to
Go ahead,
mention
Eugene.
some.
Well,
I
I'm just
wanted to
ranting
say
anyway.
that this is. I respond to your question. How the fuck? My response is that reactionary mindset is extremely ideological and not conscious of its ideology. Like it's a big
Isn't it?
difference between the leftists and many modern like mainstream politics. You know, mainstream people who are in politics do not seem like don't consider themselves ideological. And some leftists even like some people on the left and on the right don't consider themselves ideological. They're like, no, it's just logical. It's just this is science, it's truth. This is how it is. This is logic. It's but every single person is ideological. All of our decisions are ideological. And our politics and our opinions are ideological. Those people are ideological as well. They act based on their ideology, whatever ideology it is. It doesn't matter if they realize that or not. And if they don't realize that, this is where contradictions come in. Like when you start saying extremely, like just insanity, when you start spewing bullshit, when you have some things that you consider factually correct, right? Some separated facts about economy, about politics, about history, and you start putting them all together, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. This is why my beliefs are correct. Yeah, it makes sense. I can justify my beliefs by using this. My knowledge of history, sociology, and economy. Great, I know some stuff. And then, when you start hearing legit criticism of your ideology, which seems completely logical to you, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe, just maybe, I am correct. And this person is actually wrong. And let me ignore like 90% of the things that people are saying about my politics and try to invent connections where there aren't any and try to justify by any means necessary my political beliefs. And what they do is they start contradicting themselves. They start saying complete bullshit. This is when you start doing the grind, like the gear thing in the head, because they have to keep justifying it. They can't just accept that they're wrong and that capitalism is bad, because their response to capitalism is bad is like, well, I can agree that we need some level of social security for people, social safety net. That's what we need. That will solve everything. And this is like the maximum we can get a reactionary to, in my opinion. In the current state of material conditions, that's it. You can only do that,
Mm.
and because they're like completely ideological and they don't realize that.
Yeah, this is why I tend to agree with people who say that we should start to not debate certain people that are on the right because they're too ideological and they're too gear grindy in the head, because they'll say something like what is it? Oh, we were talking about it before, that the fascist philosopher actually called himself a leftist. But when you say to them, no, he denounced socialism and Marxism, it's a known fact, they will still say, oh, well, let me finish my point. Knowing that this fascist philosopher said blah blah blah, like we just told you that he didn't.
Yeah.
And it's
Fucking Tilly.
that's the one, yeah. It's because of that stuff that I
can't-
tend to agree that we just don't do it. Just
I can't
Oh,
live
now
in a
my gears are
world
getting
where
grindy.
fascists aren't leftists. I can't do it. They have to.
We have to be leftists. Let's find a way to claim that this bad thing is actually not on our side. Let's find a way to justify that. And if there is some crazy fuck who says that, let's make him popular collectively, because this is what collectively ideological people do. They make this opinion popular. They try to get it on. They listen to it. It's really bad. It's really fucking bad. And
Let's get Ben Shapiro on
unfortunately,
the show, shall we?
oh, he's so
What?
bad. I'm done. No.
He's a prime example of why we should not have those kinds of people on the show.
Wait, who? What? Who?
Exactly.
What?
It reminds
Ben
me of
Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro. Oh, fuck off.
how to destroy leftists.
Talk
Debate
really
leftists
fast.
utterly. Destroy them.
Make like a false point and talk so fast that people can't like address every single false point at once. And then be
Yeah.
like, haha, I destroyed you. Now moving on. But
He is why Posadism needs to take off.
he's why we need to get the dolphins
or-
to nuke us.
Maybe it's the reason existence of Ben Shapiro is a great argument for narco nihilism.
Yeah, just fuck it.
It's-
Anarcho-nihilism is positive.
Fuck it. Kill everyone. I don't care. Let's get a bunch of people and then assassinate a bunch of people.
To go
Let her bomb
like,
everyone.
to go slightly more
Let her bomb.
specific, someone like Ben will say some illogical thing like the premise 1, grass is green. Premise 2, grass is blue. Therefore, all grass is blue. But when you explain to them, no, you just said that all grass is green, but all grass is blue. There's a contradiction there. How can your argument work? They come back at you and say, "Oh well, you're just a lefty cuck. How can you not understand my logic? Ha ha ha! Get the fuck off my show!" And then they kick you off. Like,
Destroyed epic style.
it's not that when I go, it's not because I don't understand. It's because they're not even wrong. Then that's a scientific term in that they have fucked up so hard. There is no way to prove. They can't prove themselves right. No one can prove them wrong because they're so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Please, kids, don't be
Uh,
reactionary.
The
Bad
chat is
news.
mentioning millennial woes. I'm not really familiar with the dude. I've Googled the name and I'm not really sure.
I
Like,
swear I've
in
heard
my
that before.
I don't really know the guy. I will try to look into him. Like, I
We'll
can't
never
really
do it.
say honest approach thing because if we talk about ideological people, there is no really honest approach because either person is outright lying to you or lying to him or herself. Like, it's just the way the fucking reactionary mind works. Like, if you can hear occasionally stuff that is, how you say it, like, sounds honest on the reactionary right, it's mostly, again, plagued with pre-made assumptions and, mixing up ideological debates and historical debates when, like, mention of Holodomor completely, destroys all left politics.
Mm.
Hey,
That's-
you know about this thing?
That's
It's
the other
complete-
thing.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, it will explain, like, oh, in the idea of socialism with a planned economy, they'll quickly have a quip of like, "Ha, you mean like under Stalin?" Ha ha ha. Like, no, I don't mean like under Stalin. What the fuck? Do you not understand what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's
Like,
just like
they think
it's-
socialism is only what Stalin did when he was in power.
or
It's true
that
that-
everybody wants to do that.
Yeah.
There is no difference between anything on the left. And,
And-
let's also
Antifa are
lie about
actually
Stalin.
Marxist-Leninists.
Yeah, and let's lie about Stalin and like keep saying bullshit just so that it will reinforce our agreement on our pre-assumed ideology.
What I
While
get-
the world fucking burns in flames while we keep doing that.
What really got me? What really gets my cortex in a vortex? Is the concept that the right always proclaims to us, saying that the left wants big government. Sure, we may want the state to facilitate basic needs of the proletariat. Fine, okay. But it says
What if we want no government?
in every major leftist text, you can find some variation of this phrase. The goal of communism is a stateless society where the means of production are owned by the workers. A stateless society.
Hmm.
Oh, that's called anarchy. It's chaos.
But that's
And
actually called
anarchy-
attitude.
no,
That's
no,
not
no,
how
no,
that
no.
works. So anyway, moving on. Like,
That's wrong.
fuck, Jesus.
No, that's wrong. The anarchy is actually on the right, because when you go more left, you get more government. But when you go more right, you get less government. So therefore, anarchism is far right.
Exactly, it's far right.
Oh.
This
I
is
knew
some, this
anarchists
is
were
some
the real
real American.
fascists.
It's some,
can't
yes,
take
it's
this
some
either
real
way.
American ideology. I love it.
It started in America.
Exactly. Oh my god. Fucking hell, anarchy, less government.
It was developed by
Soft dance
esoteric
of the revolution.
in 2003.
Fucking hell.
So,
Oh my fucking god. I
so
love it. Do you know
so,
if they actually keep like yeah, what was say Pac-Man?
anarcho-liberal gang?
Stop.
Where's the ban button on this?
It's like it hurts my brain.
All right, we're at about
Oh my God.
just over an hour, and I think we went off on a big tangent there. So if anybody
It
has
was
any,
still rather fun.
oh yeah, if anybody's got any last thoughts before we go,
Shameless
Sure,
plug.
I can do that. You let me. Oh yeah, Pac-Man, please. I'm sorry.
Shameless plug. Everybody check out the YouTube channel Posadas Pac-Man. Just head on over there and have a look if you haven't already. You will see a cameo from all the boys here at EML, who are my dear comrades and friends. And so yes, subscribe to me and subscribe to them and subscribe to their individual channels as well, because they do have them. Also subscribe to Spoogs because the nihilism is fucking real.
Hell yeah.
Just shameless plugging for everybody here. Also, go subscribe to Goulash Guy for more being wrong about Hungary.
so I can summon him again.
Actually, no.
The evil, even Goulash man is going to attack.
No, actually, you know what I think you should do, Eugene? I think what you should do is you should create a Facebook page for your cat. And just make it
really?
a leftist shit posting
Instagram.
page.
I was actually thinking about Instagram because I have some really dope photos of my cat.
Yeah, like Photoshop Ushankas onto him or some shit and just make leftist memes with your cat. Carl and Rosa.
Don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. My cats are too left-com to do anything in terms of revolution.
I was going to say the left columns. Your cat's a left.
No.
Well, I guess that's a good time to wrap up then. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay up to date with everything Eastern Marshlands. Thank you to everyone in the chat and for watching. And a special thanks to Positus Pac-Man, Eugene, Spoogs, and to Goulash Guy who dropped in as well. Apologies to Paul who could not make it here with us. I dropped a link to the Discord in the live chat, so come join us on the Discord for extra shitposty after hours, and we will see you next time. Catch us all later.